Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and in a moment we're going to start BioShock 2. Now, I've just played BioShock 1 Remastered, we're going to play BioShock 2 Remastered, and I had to do an addendum that said, the remaster, kind of as it is until it's patched, isn't actually better than the original game. It is visually with the new textures better looking, but it runs slower. The audio sounds worse. The feel with the new textures has changed slightly, so you're really not experiencing the same game. The controller's mouse acceleration, it messes up the tightness of the controller. Even when you have a gamepad plugged in, as I do, it was still there. So when all was said and done, you're better off putting up with the old graphics. And now we're in this weird position because BioShock 1 was a 9-year-old game. BioShock 2 is only a 6-year-old game. So 3 years later, they came out with BioShock 2, and when we look at these options, they kind of look exactly the same. There is some slight differences. You can go over 1080p in the remastered version. Uh, but this is what the original setup looked. I will say that at 1080p, the text is now not scaling as well. Uh, that is certainly something here. The controller sensitivity in the original BioShock 2 starts at like 0.2. It is way down there on the sensitivity. This starts at 5 by default. Now, I imagine that is nothing but just them adjusting the scale so you could lower the sensitivity even more. It's actually a good thing if the default setting is in the middle of the bar instead of far to the left, because if somebody found that it was still too sensitive at 0.2, you can only go down to 0. I don't think you can go negative. I want to also show the controls here for the remastered version and the game itself. Some of the buttons have changed. So the left trigger, left bump, right trigger, right bump are all the same. But the first aid kit is now D-pad on the right. Changing ammo is the same for D-pad on the left, up, and down. Jump is still Y. X is still reload. And reload, I assume, means reload if you have a plasmid, use Eve. And if you have a weapon, reload your gun, as it was before. A is now just a nebulous interact, which it always was, but I think it was probably labeled use item, which was the old way of doing that. And I suppose we could change color schemes here. You could move with the other ones, or we could uh, fire with the bumps, or we could do both. But the different controller schemes don't seem like they really change what any of the face buttons do. A definite lack of just customization here. The one that is new is now you have a melee attack by default. So instead of picking up a wrench and attacking a character, you can just always hit B and melee. And that is certainly something that's appreciated because it takes one more weapon out of that really huge weapon wheel. We can, by default, have the reverb off since that was there. Audio is all going to be the same. But we do now have the ability to go all the way to 7.1 of Pro Logic. Unfortunately, for YouTube and for my recording software, going anything above stereo is not possible. The software just doesn't know how to do it. There's no encoding format and nothing that I know of that YouTube can accept that would have surround sound audio. So that's a shame. I would like to see that improved on YouTube side. And then we have the default settings here. Now, what is very interesting is the art subtitles by default were on, unless I accidentally turned them on in my test. I turned on the dialogue subtitles. The quest arrow is on by default, but item shimmer is going to be off, and usable object highlight is going to be off. So if this is the default settings, that means certain things are just not going to light up like they did in the first game. But I mean, it's been 3 years, and I know how to play video games, so I can tell the difference between something you can pick up and use and something you can't. Hopefully. And so that's kind of all we need to point out, other than the fact that there is no developer's commentary here. BioShock 2 is made by 2K Marin, not 2K Boston, formerly known as Irrational Games. It's not made really by Ken Levine or the people who made BioShock 1, so they don't really have anything to say about it. They were too busy working on BioShock Infinite, which took a while to get made. So the only downloadable content we have, nope, not the credits. I have noticed that highlighting the right thing there is a mess, and loading back into the menu is a mess. But the downloadable content are going to be the Protector Trials and Minerva's Den. I've never actually played Minerva's Den. I believe I have done the Protector Trials, and so we'll do that at the end of the series. Generally saying, just based on my addendum though, I imagine, since there are Steam achievements, if you're obsessed with Steam achievements like me, for BioShock 2, the original, I'd imagine you probably want to go play the original, and then play the remaster. Now, I'm doing it backwards, I guess, and that might have some argument to it also, because we may very well be playing the worser version right now until a patch comes out, by playing the remastered version, and then going to play the original, you might appreciate it more. I don't know. Anywho, that's enough setup. Let's start BioShock 2 and we can start talking about the game itself. New game. Now, I think when I started I accidentally chose medium. This time I'm going to try to... I guess we'll just stick with medium. I have played other shooters. Have I really played a lot of shooters? No, I don't want to play on hard. So we'll just stick with medium again. That's how most people would play it, I imagine. Now, I'll get into this story and explain it because it's kind of confusing. But we need to watch the intros first. And I did just play about 20 minutes of the original game, so I can tell you from that first appearance whether the graphics look better or worse. They almost certainly look better. This might not look any better because it's pre-rendered. Yeah, I'm seeing some noticeable just compression issues on this video.
Look, Daddy, it's you.
The little sisters look a lot better.
Let's go out to play, Daddy.
Hairstyles and just more human looking animations. I think the splicers look a little more human too, from what I could tell. But this video, if you're seeing little black squares, and that's video compression, JPEG compression stuff that I'm definitely seeing. That's a low bit rate. Here she's drinking the blood, which I don't think we actually saw
angels, Daddy.
Do that
This way.
in the first game. Oh, maybe they did it once. So this is the New Year's party before Rapture fell.
Get me out of here!
Come with us, little girl.
You want some, big guy?
He just stepped on him.
Bigger than hard! Harder than hard! Get out of here, freak!
I don't like the skip button on
He's
the top
perfectly
of
safe now. This
videos.
is not your daughter. Do you understand? Her name is Eleanor, and she is mine. Now, kneel, please. Remove your helmet. Now, take the pistol. Place it against your head. Fire.
So that video probably would just be what the original game scaled to 1080p badly would look like. And that looked worse than it did on the original game. And you do have a 1080p setting in the original game, so unless you're trying to go above that, because you can go up to 4K, I don't see the point of the remaster at all.
Hello, can you hear me?
So this is 10 years later, and this looks a lot better than that video. So this is 10 years later, 8 years after the events of the first game. And we're playing as a Big Daddy. We're in front of this Rydo chamber, so we somehow either respawned after we shot ourselves, or have been in a... somehow... You could even wonder if maybe you were thrown through time, since there is this time element. It is also worthwhile assuming that what happens in this game is actually not a continuation of the same reality, spoiler alert, of BioShock 1. This could very well be a just slightly different alternate. So here we have Fallen is Babylon, and we have a picture of a bunch of missing people and dead people. Now, unlike the first game where the porthole, where you could see, was very round. Here's our first little sister. It is now very oval and just taking up a small point in each corner to remind you you're wearing a helmet. Unfortunately, I think you're going to play a big portion of the game wearing this helmet, so that's kind of a thing. This coral has grown. Rapture is still a mess, and yet somehow it's somewhat survived. Now, on the original game, you were getting keyboard controls even when you were playing with the controller. So we're trying to get to this little sister. What's that? What's this say? Lamb is watching. So, I jokingly, at least in part, said BioShock 1's true horror was that it was objectivism and then the libertarianism that Andrew Ryan implored, and that was the real scare. In this game, it's trying to take a touch on socialism, but I do have to full disclosure have to admit, I think socialism actually would work in a society that no longer had very many needs. So a very, very rich society, imagine Star Trek The Next Generation, for example, where you could replicate everything. any society lesser than that, no, socialism won't work. And definitely it won't work in a society like Rapture that has already been ruined and destroyed. There's no coming back for Rapture of any kind of economic mentality. Now the socialism that's going to be promoted by Sofia Lamb is one it's based around using social psychological training to train people to think as a group, and that's not really going to work in Rapture because all the splicers were thinking like libertarians, and it's too late then.
Lesson 1, mop jockeys. You are under the ocean now. If you feel the soft patter of rain on your hat, you're already fired. Lesson 2. You can jumpstart a dead generator with a direct spark, but clear the guests out of the pool first. Scares these rich pricks to watch a working stiff hurling thunderbolts. You follow me?
So yeah, you're just not gonna be able to do anything with Rapture, and the fact that Sofia Lamb is trying to rebuild it is really silly. It would take a lot more effort in a successful, thriving economy, not a nightmare economy like this.
So I might have delayed the end a bit longer. Stay dead this time!
So you have your drill is your main attack here, but you also have this melee ability, and I don't believe the melee uses any fuel, but the drill itself does. So I'm gonna be somewhat softer on socialism because honestly, it's not a fair comparison. It would be if this was what they should have done. Just say this right. Look, here is a new feature. It's just telling us the number because we see it over there on the left backwards, and they flipped it to make the game easier. What they should have done is they should have made a city like Rapture, but completely different, probably not under the sea. And they eventually did this in BioShock Infinite, and not have the stories connected. Because having one failed society and then trying to use what is arguably the opposite way of thinking, because objectivism is that the government can't legislate morals, and this form of socialism is that the government absolutely will legislate and train morals and make everybody feel like they should be one whole unit and work together.
My husband is such a perfect idiot.
You wouldn't get a
Throws
society
away
like
all his
Rapture
spending
through
money on
socialism.
gene tonics to affect a look of physical fitness. So he'll have an excuse to sit on his rear all day listening to radio serials. Steven, I tell him, you want to be fit? Come swim laps with me, the old-fashioned way. It's your mind that's atrophying. Maybe I'll start sneaking some brain boost into his daily regimen.
So the funny thing here is that she's still totally cool with like giving him drugs and modifying his genes, which a socialist society I think would be kind of cool with that if after a while of being careful with it, hopefully. But the pure socialism doesn't have money, so things like this cash register wouldn't exist. You would everything belongs to everybody, and this is given out to it. Now the comparison here to communism is everything belongs to the government in communism. So if you steal anything from anywhere, you're stealing from the government. Under socialism, if you steal anything, you're stealing from the people. It's depending on how corrupt and megalomaniacal the dictator running this country is, determines how well that works. So here's a book by Sofia Lamb, Unity and Metamorphosis. And here is an Eve dispenser, which a libertarian would never have. You would never have it where you can't give away things for free. That's just antithetical to what Andrew Ryan is. So now I'm like full of Eve for free instead of having to purchase it, which I did many and many times in the first BioShock. So I'm getting flashbacks of a different flashbacks. You're not the same person from the first game, by the way, in case there was any question here. And let's see. We have Please Hurry Daddy and From Eleanor. That's the girl we're going to be looking for. And we're given Electro Bolt and all these ribbons. Well, that messed up in the animation. The engine had to work really hard to put me in the right place for that cutscene.
Daddy was sleeping for such a long time, and Eleanor has missed you. Find her and you'll be all better. Daddy!
So there we get introduced to a new character, the big sister. Before we go that way though, let's look around here. Even though the game wants you to rush after her, I can tell you that you don't actually find her. Health loss, but Eve gained when you smoke, okay. I'll have to remember that whole system. Pretty much you just don't want to smoke. You don't want to smoke and you don't want to drink alcohol. Here we have a charged corpse. We still have the money system. Notice now though there isn't a 1,000 mark place. So at least it's going to be more honest. The first game made it seem like you could have $1,000 at least, if not $9,999. But then it said your wallet was full at $500, and that never changed. So there's nothing else here. Let's run back and try to save that little sister. We're playing as a big daddy, so it makes sense that we're trying to protect the little sister. So, the 1-2 punch is not a wrench as it was before. It is now this shock them and then melee them. Don't sit there and drill them, because if you drill them, you're just wasting your drill fuel and it takes longer to kill them. So we don't have to have a wrench or anything. Ironically, we're going to run into a wrench. Where did that body go? I'm having trouble seeing it. Did I not knock it down? So whatever the usable item highlight is, it doesn't apparently affect main quest sections like that, because those are still very much being highlighted. There he is. So that was quite a noise. So I hit the generator so we can start lighting up the city.
Ah, at last a signal. You who are bringing this dead city to life, listen. My name, it is Tenenbaum. I know who you are, and I am in much need of your help. Please, find me in the Atlantic Express train station.
That one's broken. So we got the windows open and we can look out here. I imagine there's more foliage like the remastered BioShock 1 here. And the graphics do look slightly better, more round and less... Like, when you get down here, this probably would have been more like a hexagon in the original game than a circle. But so far I haven't seen drastic improvements. When you look at the splicers here, they look more human, they're more varied. It certainly helps get away from it. Looking at some of the ideas they had in the first game, they were going to make the splicers very, very monsterish, like zombies at first, and I'm glad they chose against that. See, we see this guy using a rivet gun to fix the leaks. So Big Daddies are just walking around. Now, if I want to refill, I don't think I can on Eve. I think I just have to fire, and then it refills by default just by doing that. Now this is still the same Rapture though, so it's like the pay toilets. Absolutely anti-socialist idea. And yet, since this is a libertarian city as it was built up, they're still there.
Who'd have thought? Get out of my home!
So, there is a wrench, or there was a wrench. Where'd it go? Last time when I started the game, there was a wrench right here. It's missing in the remastered version. Interesting. There was a wrench right there.
Soon you will be born, and Rapture will be your home. You shall be raised as I was, to advance the common good through social psychiatry. This city's potential is immeasurable, Eleanor. Yet our beliefs are unwelcome here. Life will be difficult, but the price of revolution is always dear. If we are patient with her, Rapture will come to us.
So, social psychiatry is... It's basically education that could certainly be taken to brainwashing at any extreme. So that is incredibly odd. This is a nice round pipe.
I haven't had a taste of Adam in weeks.
We can still hit him in the water and
This is
electrify
Dr.
him.
Sofia Lamb with a message for the people. Remember, you are not alone. Think of me not as leader, but as mother to the Rapture family.
So it's a family. She's not the leader, she's the mother. Stuff like that.
I am back in Rapture after so many years. The little ones I rescued are grown up and think of me no more. After what I once did to them, it was a joy to be forgotten. But now, all around the world, children vanish by the sea, kidnapped. And so I return, in fear of what I already know. Someone is making new little ones, continuing my work, my sins. Even if I am to die for it, I must stop them.
So the question we should ask at 30 minutes into this, since the game was crashing, do I need to save every little while? Or are we done with that? I suppose until we get about 4 or 5 hours into the game, I don't know. So in both BioShock 1 and BioShock 2, there are some Orwellian-esque ideas put here. The idea that Sofia Lamb is always watching is just total dictatorship, total controlling society. This book being everywhere is right out of Nazism. It's the Mein Kampf by Adolf Hitler, just being a copy being owned by every single person. Or it could be that she's just putting her book everywhere, and that's part of her education / brainwashing of these splicers, which, I mean, it's still not as bad as what Andrew Ryan was doing, because Andrew Ryan was specifically using pheromones to control all the splicers. So that's worse. That's just full-on brainwashing. Here we have a standard Rosie, and I am not a big bouncer or a Rosie. I'm a actually special splicer that was a prototype. And see, we now have this gun, but it's a rivet gun, and it takes about 3 shots to kill a splicer. So you're already hitting this level of, like, lack of successful shooting that plagued us throughout all this. No supplies here, not locked behind a vending machine, just there for anybody to take. There's a first aid kit. That's the general idea, although it is always probably necessary unless you just have a ridiculously unlimited supply of utensil of things to still run accountings and make sure people aren't hoarding things. Hoarding in itself would be a horrible deterrent to a successful socialist society. Here's a broken bathysphere.
Barely made it down alive. But here it is. And it's real. Rapture. This is where that thing took my poor baby girl. From what I saw in the sub, most of the city's in ruins. But there were lights here and there. And shapes moving. I'm rambling, scared, I guess. But maybe, if I find this Dr. Lamb I keep hearing over the PA, I'll find Cindy too.
So, they're bringing people from the service, little girls. And see, that just immediately makes Sofia Lamb like a lunatic. It's just like desperately trying to get this society to work in a place where it just won't work. And it's important for any kind of theology, ideology, to realize the practicality in things and just say, look, this society is messed up. It's not going to succeed under communism or socialism or capitalism or libertarianism or whatever, under a dictatorship, under a democracy, under a republic. All those different ideas, some of those are economic, some of those are political theories. None of them are going to succeed in Rapture because Rapture's too messed up. And bringing people back is just lunacy. Here we found another little sister, maybe the same one. See, the character model looks so much better here. It's surprising that these character models won't put in the remastered version of the first game, because that would make more sense. So we're introduced to Big Sister. There's a lot of lens flare there. And we're gonna take her down. And she is strong. And she is fast. And since the first aid kits are now in a different place, it takes more things to do. And it's a different gameplay style. I got it down to half, but I've used almost all my health. So she gets afraid and runs away.
This is Dr. Sofia Lamb with a message for the people. Remember, Big Sister is always watching. To steal Adam is to steal from the Rapture family. Your family.
So, Big Sister is always watching, Lamb is always watching. Very Orwellian dictatorship ways of thinking and promoting control. I guess the little sister ran this way, or I wasn't looking. Can't go in here. The graphics do look better. I certainly can't argue that point in the remastered version. And if it doesn't crash, and if it's playing alright so far, I've not felt like there's an acceleration issue like in the first game. There is a question why the Vita chambers would work for me, but I assume they will.
Diane insisted that we spend a weekend at the Adonis.
Here's
And
Andrew
already
Ryan.
I find myself seeking a respite from my vacation. And she deems it necessary to chide me for working. The words dissolve into an endless animal bleat. I founded Rapture to be free of law and God, to live among those for whom work is our wage. Yet, when Diane speaks of bearing my child, I am given pause. Until now, I had never considered my legacy. Perhaps after the new year.
See, and that's almost making Andrew Ryan sympathetic, which is probably a mistake to do. Just storyline-wise. Let's see, you can't get up any higher on any of these sections. These doors are different. These are like elevator doors. I want to get as much as I can find. Now, I may not actually be able to get drunk, or it might just take longer, since I'm a big daddy. So, Andrew Ryan coming back, probably he should come back very sparingly. Here we see the big sister is running away. Are we chasing after her? Or, I mean, I guess we have to, don't we? Big sisters have these baskets, or there may only actually be one big sister in the whole game. But she has this basket where she'll try and save little sisters from me. Why they need to be saved from me, I don't know. He broke the glass. Oh no. Of course I am in a diving suit, so... Is that really a problem? Nope. It actually isn't. Now, we never got to be underwater in the game. In the first game, it makes sense. What happens to this? Those tunnels? Are they flooded? Did we just drown a little sister on accident? I hope not. Speaking of the killing of little sisters, which we still won't do because I feel like that's a ridiculous, heartless option, there's also some other bad guys that you have to try and spare. And it seems, if I recall what the last time I played this, which was
In
the
that
first
suit,
time,
even the ocean cannot harm you. This is good. But Rapture is the death of many great men. Alone, you will not last long. You can still reach the train station. Find me there.
So, we'll try very hard not to kill any of those bad guys, but I'm not certain. I'm gonna succeed. It may end up being more of a 50-50.
All right, diary. Last entry. Lizzie and I, we found a sphere, and we're going home. Ain't that right, baby? Next stop, topside.
Oh, I love you. It was you who saved us, Sammy. It was you, Button. What was that? What's that sound?
She's seen us. It's Lamb. Torpedo! Ah, I'm trying to...
See, and that's just dictatorship there. When you're torpedoing people, it would be a waste of resources to use a torpedo on a couple of people escaping. Although that might be the just rules enforcement. If one escapes, maybe more could escape. Here we have a new style of Big Daddy fighting against these guys. Of course, I don't have a weapon out right now. So there's the little sister. And we're watching through here. Now if I need any fuel, I can use this for drill fuel. At least usually I can. I'm kind of stuck in this cutscene. Like, on the economics of it, if two people wanted to leave a social society, just let them leave. Then there's more resources for the rest. Now, maybe if they were stealing a bunch of resources, that would be a problem, but if they're just leaving and they're taking a bathysphere, maybe bathyspheres are really expensive, but you could easily just allow people to check out. That's all these games really fall down into just people obsessed about following ideologies over being practical. And BioShock Infinite just barely is a communist society. Barely. It almost doesn't touch it at all. The idea is that the father of BioShock Infinite is kind of the owner of the entire, of everything that's communism, is that the government, in that case, the father, is this, and it's followed up with a heavy religious, like, belief in him. Here, I'm gonna have to jump upward because I fell in a square. That's pretty rough. There, that should have been more of a rounded pit. Now there are some sea slugs with Adam in them, but I bet you can't get them right now because we haven't collected any Adam yet. In cutscenes later on, you can find the sea slugs that collect the Adam and just pick them up and crush them without hurting Little Sisters because they're not injected into the Little Sisters. So here's Rapture, and we're out here looking at it. It's kind of a late game intro. And this is just a straight path with some different areas. Here's like, these look like air conditioners, but they wouldn't work. So they must be some kind of air filters or something. The light here being used to show. And then there's the big sister swimming around. Again, I can't fight him. And so we come to the airlock, which apparently existed in Rapture the whole time, although we never saw any of them. Of course, they were only for Big Daddy, so they could have been hidden very well. We go to full black. And we load into the next section. I really didn't expect that I was going to have time to play BioShock 2. I said at the end of BioShock 1 Remastered, that I'd probably play it next year in October. What's weird is it says press A to continue, and then it doesn't actually do it for a while.
Ah, Herr Delta.
It's saved
You
there.
arrive, as the little one said you would. Come upstairs to the ticket booth, and I will offer what I know of you.
So she calls you Air Delta, which is weird. So we want to be obsessive about collecting things. We ran at 100% right when we finished the game, but we used almost all the resources we collected for the rest of the game. Many a time we'd fill up our wallet to 500 and then spend all that money buying items. I hear something jingling, which tells me there's something to pick up somewhere around here. Safety now.
And I backed up all the blankets so they'd be dry for her.
And so, the people that are still here in Rapture may just be people looking for their sisters. That's what it sounds like, is they're looking for their daughters.
Now
not
most who
sisters.
survive are like this. Splicers. They're drug addicts. Vicious animals.
Yeah. And see, I don't know particularly how much drugs a socialist society would allow as far as like actual illegal substances and not just like mental prescription drugs.
You can sometimes trick the security system into opening a door, but you must have the proper tool.
The reason being is, the argument is, if somebody uses drugs, they're using resources at the very least, because the drugs themselves are considered resources. They're probably also using medical resources every time one of them overdoses and gets sent to a hospital. So, I don't think, just by default, it would be as drug-friendly as a libertarian society would be, which says that the government should just stay out of everybody's business and not legislate morality. It's kind of the exact opposite. We would say drugs are bad and make them illegal as a socialist society, just because of the bigger impact. So we have this remote hack tool, which is cool. So press A to stop the needle on the green section to advance. White will give you a nasty shock. So, no more pipe dream, no more pipe game. And we've got 3 weapons already. And I think for the most part we'll stick with the rivet gun. Even though we started with the drill. We will be reborn. Here's a... So I think you want the blue. Getting blue bonus while hacking will upgrade its damage. So that's nice. Now there's nothing really stopping a socialist society for saying like marijuana is okay and we'll let them. It's just depends. It depends on, do you have to police it? Do you have to spend resources to make sure people don't do overdose on it, which I don't think you can overdose on marijuana, so I think that'd be fine, but then harder drugs would probably not be alright, like cocaine, heroin, things that would actually end with people doing that. And then you have to get into the idea of how do people act on those drugs? Does that help society if somebody is lazy and a stoner? Or does it hurt society because now they're not pulling their weight?
Got the new truth here for you.
So, all those things would have to be
Sofia
thought out.
Lamb. Andrew Ryan is dead, but the tyrant dwells within us all. Remember, We reject the gene. We reject the self. We reject the tyrant.
So instead of calling people you don't like parasites, she calls them tyrants, which he was a tyrant, absolutely. Let's see. Now I assume the red section will drop a free first aid kit. Nice. So we want to hack all these health stations for sure. Take note that all the reload animations for this guy are one-handed. No longer does he pull an injector of Eve to inject himself. Oh, I thought we might get a camera right there. No longer does he use the other hand to reload guns. It's just all done with kind of magic. Like, I don't even know how he reloads his gun.
I'm told that the people grow tense and isolated in the absence of the sun. Now they clamor for a psychiatrist. Do they miss the state censor, I wonder? Wartime seizure of private assets? Or the checkup police vanishing them in the night? Regardless, this Lamb woman is said to be the foremost practitioner in her field. Fine. If she can quiet the rattling of the Great Chain's weakest links, I will leave her to it.
So you see this and you might think, oh, maybe we'll find blueprints for new weapons or something. But no. And there's nothing over here. Where are we supposed to go? This way? The end of Rhine is the end of the self. There must be something on the other side of this. We'll get to it in a second. I think there was another point I wanted to make here. Mostly like the first series, the first recording is going to be covering most of the socialism and tyrannical socialism that she's running here. It's kind of a false equivalency, really, in my opinion. But again, I'm biased, so maybe this is what it is. This is certainly what the countries that did try to have socialist societies ended up running into problems of having tyrants run it. It also is worth pointing out that Sofia Lamb is not mentioned once in the first game, and now she's this major player. Yeah, there's nothing here. Alright. That Andrew Ryan's referencing. Yeah, this almost looks like I could clip right through the ship there. Again, they're using lighting to point us to the right direction. There's the little jingle. Kind of far for the jingle to be heard. Here we have some security cameras we're seeing. That looks like in-game footage and videos. Did we just trap ourselves? Cameras everywhere.
I know you. That symbol on your hand marks you a dead man. 10 years, Subject Delta, since I watched you put a gun to your head and pull the trigger. But take heart. Out of your pain, paradise was born. I don't know how you survived, but your suffering is over now. These men will ease your burden. Please understand that like all I have done, this is an act of love.
So, craziness here.
It is Sofia Lamb. She has found you.
Did they just shoot their own guy? Almost died there in the fire. fell through the floor. And my security bot, not very helpful. So it seems a little early to again be out in the water. That's a little repetitive. See, obviously, after a certain point, they needed to throw you and show you the big sister, and then they needed to explain to you Sofia Lamb, and they could have done that in one scene. Where's this corpse? Here it is. Just floating. Is Sofia Lamb using the pheromones to control the splicers? That will be a good question.
Now you know of the enemy we share, Sofia Lamb. The camera in your helmet allows me to watch through your eyes and help you to fight her.
So I have a camera in my helmet already? So maybe the whole research and camera stuff doesn't even come back. Maybe that I'd be alright with that not being an aspect to the game. It's an idea that gets tried every now and then. Here's the masquerade ball that where the Civil War really broke up. But it never gets implemented right. What's interesting is you can't crouch down right now. Like, here you can crouch down. But when you are standing here, you cannot. But when you're here, you can. That seems very strange. How would I get over here? I must have to enter that section in a different way because I can't jump in the water either. Games often have problems with being halfway in water. But it's an easy enough thing to hide. Since it happens very rare. Let's see. Lamb will lead the way. And all these handprints. And the books. I guess you have to assume that she is using brainwashing techniques at the very least, like were used against the main character in the first game, because you see at the very beginning she uses brainwashing techniques and plasmids to control you. So...
Careful, security cameras belong to Lamb. But if you are clever, they can be made to serve you.
So, remote hack tool now. And there we go. Blue bonus gives you longer friendly alarms. Of course. I'm gonna go back to my weapons.
It must have been an echo.
So I can just stand back here and let it clear the area for me. At least until they destroy that, which they may never ever even try to do. There's a lot more food. I'm seeing different types of foods, but see, now the alarm doesn't trigger itself a second time. So you do have to wait for it to go off and then start again. Of course, the flaw with allowing a security camera to eliminate all the bad guys in an area is you don't really know where the bad guys' bodies are. See, and I saw this section over there, but maybe you don't reach that for a really long time. Maybe it's just a tease. Desks are less searchable. Most of these desks have already been searched. These drafting things. It's an interesting idea to be in an area where there's a lot of architecture and drafting going on. I took a drafting class in school and I enjoyed it quite a lot. Which is very odd because I never drew anything as a youth. Didn't do any like coloring or drawing at all. So I actually think that probably helped in drafting because it requires a very different style, very precise style of making lines and using rulers versus freehand drawing, which is much more artistic and subjective. We have this, but there's no reason or ability to hack those. And then we have a whole nother section over there. And come find me.
Father, it's me, Eleanor. I know you're awake in there. I can feel it. Mother won't be able to toy with you like that ever again. This plasmid is for you. If I'm right, you can use it now. Please, find me.
So, Eleanor is helping us. Come soon, come find me. And it's spoiler alert, I believe you have to find her or you'll die. With the remastered thing, you can see this video is now smaller at a higher resolution. That's just how resolution on pre-rendered video is. Press and you have all these butterflies, which I don't think you can free. Well, I guess you can. Well, I guess I missed some opportunities earlier to free some butterflies if that's some kind of achievement. So, before I run this way, since I have this telekinesis, maybe I can go get that audio thing. I didn't get all the achievements in the first game, and I doubt I'll get all the achievements in the second game, but I want to be as thorough as possible.
Hello, Mr. Diary. Want to play? Actually, I'm quite busy right now, Miss Eleanor. Maybe later. Well, all right. But do you mind if I take you apart while I wait? I promise I'll put you back together. Wait! You can't do that! No! Wait! What? Eleanor!
So, Eleanor seemed to be scientifically minded, taking apart a audio recorder. Let's see. I don't think I can telekinesis anything to that door. And there's more that way. And we've got this pneumatic tube. And there's nothing else. So let's see what this button does. That was just food. Shooting things at me. Food and coffee. So that was kind of just there as an experiment, I guess, so you can play with telekinesis and figure it out. Let's see. Hope this helps. The little sister's definitely taking on a different attitude and mentality, these new little sisters versus the old ones, because the old ones were very limited in what they do. Let's see, we've been going an hour too, so I guess I'll just save here. We've already gotten one autosave when we loaded into this section. It doesn't feel like the game is going to crash. If I hit back, it brings up the menu a lot better. I wouldn't be super surprised if this was a better version of Unreal, the next version, in the 3 years' time. The original BioShock was a heavily modified version of Unreal, and that probably explains it. This big round room tells me we're probably going to fight the big sister again in the next recording. Like, everything here is running really smoothly, so I don't think we're going to have the crashes, which will be good, because then that will certainly save up some time. Anywho, that's it for this recording. Everything looks better in the remastered. Everything seems to be running fine. I'm very happy. Look at the 1,000 places for the Atom. Man, if I could get like 4,000 or 5,000 Atom and buy all of those upgrades, that would be really nice, because that was something that kind of sucked in BioShock, is that you just didn't actually have enough Atom to buy everything. It wasn't one of the completionist style games. You had to pick and choose, and I wouldn't be surprised if they make you pick and choose here, but they got rid of the thousands place in the money, and they kept it in the Atom. That says something to me. Anyways, I was wrapping up. I end all my episodes the same way. I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment if you want to, and watch every second of my videos. All that helps me out with YouTube. It tells them that my videos are worth watching. If you want to support me even further than that, you can click on my name, Rydo. That'll take you to my main YouTube page. On the right, there's a blue button that says support this channel. You can click that and make a donation. Also on my main YouTube page is a playlist tab where you can find a playlist for every game I've ever covered, including BioShock Remastered, in case somehow you got on this video and didn't watch the original. I think that would be weird, but okay. There's plenty of other games on that have playlists too, so I'm sure you'll find something that interests you. Finally, down below in the description box, I have links to all my social media sites like Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Google+, Steam, and Battle.net. And I ask everybody to follow and friend me on all of those services. It helps me with those services to have more followers, and it lets you see when my latest videos are available. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.